The Imperial Scout fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of a yellow star system. Their massive ships, gleaming with purple-tinted metal, dwarfed everything around them. The lead ship's commander, Ross, stood watching the third planet with mild interest. It was blue, green, and seemingly primitive according to their initial scans. "Another easy conquest," Ross muttered, his tall frame casting a shadow across the command deck. His gray uniform sparkled with medals from 100 bloodless victories. The Empire had never faced real resistance in its 10,000-year history, but this time was different. As the Imperial ships moved closer to Earth, their sensors detected something unusual. Hundreds of artificial satellites orbited the planet. Radio waves bounced through space, carrying music, messages, and data. Most surprising were the military installations on Earth's moon and the orbital defense platforms. "Interesting," Ross said, adjusting his collar. "These primitives have managed basic space travel." Suddenly, the ship's AI blared a warning. 20 ships had appeared from behind Earth's moon, moving in perfect formation. They were smaller than Imperial vessels but showed signs of advanced technology. Admiral James Walker stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, Earth's flagship. His weathered face remained calm as he studied the alien ships. Humanity had prepared for this moment for decades, building defenses and training forces. "Open communications," Walker ordered. His deep voice carried the weight of 30 years of military service. All frequencies, all languages. The Imperial fleet received the transmission. Ross smiled, amused by the primitive attempt at communication. "Let's hear what these locals have to say." The holographic display showed Admiral Walker, standing straight in his blue uniform. "This is Admiral James Walker of the United Earth Defense Force. You have entered protected space. State your intentions." Ross was surprised by the clear transmission and the human's confident stance. Most species cowered at first contact. "I am Imperial Commander Ross of the Galactic Empire. Your system lies within our expansion zone. Submit to Imperial rule, and you will be treated fairly." Walker's expression didn't change. "Commander Ross, Earth is a sovereign world. We do not submit to anyone. However, we are open to peaceful diplomatic relations." The bridge crew of the Imperial ship exchanged glances. No one had ever refused immediate submission before. Ross frowned. "Perhaps I wasn't clear. The Empire doesn't request submission. We demand it. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Resistance would be pointless." Walker allowed himself a small smile. "Commander, humanity has fought itself for thousands of years. We've learned from every battle, every war. We've prepared for this moment since we first looked at the stars. If you want this system, you'll have to fight for it. You dare threaten the Empire?" Ross's voice rose with anger. "One Imperial ship could destroy your entire fleet." "Maybe," Walker replied calmly. "But ask yourself this. Why did we let you see our defense fleet? What aren't you seeing?" Ross paused. The human's confidence was unsettling. Standard scans showed Earth's military capability was limited, but something felt wrong. These humans weren't acting like a primitive species should. "You have one Earth day to reconsider," Ross announced. "Submit, or face the consequences." Walker's response was simple. "We'll be ready." As the communication ended, Ross turned to his science officer. "Begin deep scans of the planet. I want to know everything about these humans before we crush them." Back on the Defender, Walker contacted Earth's Unified Command. "It's happening just like we expected. They're arrogant, technologically superior, and used to easy victories." "Perfect," came the response. "Operation Mousetrap is ready. Let them think they know what we're capable of." Walker looked out at the Imperial ships, their purple hulls shining in the sunlight. Humanity had hidden most of its military power, showing just enough to make the Empire curious. The real surprises lay waiting in secret bases across the solar system. The first war between humanity and the Galactic Empire was about to begin, and unlike the Empire's previous conquests, this one wouldn't be easy. The Empire was about to learn why humans were the galaxy's most dangerous survivors. Imperial advisor Thomas walked quickly through the golden halls of the Empire's central command. His footsteps echoed against the metal floors as he carried a data pad containing the most disturbing report he'd read in his 50 years of service. The doors to the war room slid open, revealing a dozen Imperial officials gathered around a holographic display of Earth. Commander Ross stood at the center, pointing at various military installations they detected. "Ah, Thomas," Ross said, barely looking up. "Come to see how we'll crush these humans." Thomas cleared his throat. "Actually, Commander, I've completed my analysis of human history. We may want to reconsider our approach." The room fell silent. No one ever suggested changing the Empire's conquest strategies. "Explain," Ross demanded, his eyes narrowing. Thomas connected his data pad to the main display. Images of human battles throughout history filled the room. Ancient armies clashing with swords, tanks rolling across deserts, ships battling on vast oceans, and modern aircraft engaging in complex maneuvers. "These humans," Thomas began, "have fought approximately 15,000 wars among themselves. They've developed more ways to fight than any species we've encountered. But that's not what worries me most." He switched to a timeline showing human technological advancement. "Look at this. They went from primitive flight to space travel in less than 70 years. From basic computers to artificial intelligence in less than a century. Their rate of adaptation is unprecedented." Commander Ross waved his hand dismissively. "Impressive for primitives, but they're still centuries behind us." "That's just it," Thomas pressed on. "Every time humans face a superior force, they adapt. They learn. They survive." He displayed images of guerrilla warfare tactics, resistance movements, and innovative military strategies from Earth's history. In their Second World War, a smaller island nation fought against an empire many times its size. In their Cold War, nations developed thousands of nuclear weapons, but found ways to fight without using them. They're masters of both open warfare and hidden conflict. The room grew tense as Thomas continued. "And now, they've had decades to prepare for extraterrestrial contact. Our scans show their visible military power, but look at these energy readings." He pointed to unusual patterns across Earth's surface. "They're hiding something. Something big." An older Imperial officer stepped forward. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting," Thomas said carefully, "that standard conquest protocols may not work here. These humans don't think like other species. They've made an art form of warfare. They've already survived countless attempts at conquest by their own kind." Ross slammed his fist on the table. "Enough. We have conquered 10,000 worlds. Our technology is superior. Our ships are invincible. These humans will fall like all the others." "Commander," Thomas tried one last time, "at least look at their entertainment media. Their stories, their movies. For centuries, they've imagined and planned for this exact scenario. They have countless strategies prepared for fighting technologically superior invaders." But Ross had already turned away, focusing on planning the invasion. Other officers followed his lead, ignoring Thomas's warnings. Back in his office, Thomas sent an urgent message to the Emperor himself. "These humans are different. They don't just fight to win. They fight to survive. And they learn from every defeat. If we don't approach this correctly, we might create an enemy unlike any the Empire has faced before." The Emperor's response was brief. "Your concerns are noted, but the Empire's might is absolute. Proceed with standard conquest protocols." Thomas stared out his window at the Empire's capital world, its endless cities gleaming under 3 suns. For the first time in his career, he felt a deep sense of worry. The Empire had grown too confident, too set in its ways. As he watched the invasion fleet prepare to depart, Thomas couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to wake something that had been preparing for this moment for generations. The Empire was about to learn why humans had survived every catastrophe their world had thrown at them. and Thomas feared that lesson would come at a terrible cost. The Imperial invasion fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Mars. 50 massive warships, their purple hulls gleaming in the sunlight, moved into attack formation. Commander Ross stood proudly on his bridge, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. "Begin the standard conquest pattern," Ross ordered. "Target their largest military bases first. Show them our power." The fleet moved forward, their weapons charging. According to thousands of previous conquests, this would be over in hours. The humans would see their defenses fall and surrender. But Earth was waiting. Admiral Walker sat in an underground command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Screens showed the approaching Imperial fleet. "Are all units in position?" he asked. "Yes, sir," his officers replied. "Operation Mousetrap is ready." Walker nodded. "Let them get closer. Let them think they know where our forces are." The Imperial ships entered firing range. Their first volley of energy weapons lit up Earth's sky, targeting the visible military bases. Ross smiled as explosions bloomed across the planet's surface. "Sir," an Imperial officer called out, "the human installations, they're empty." "What?" Ross turned sharply. Before he could process this information, space itself seemed to change around his fleet. Hidden gravity generators activated, creating artificial gravity wells that disrupted the Imperial ship's engines. The entire fleet suddenly found itself moving at half speed. "Impossible," Ross shouted. "These primitives can't have gravity technology." Then the real attack began. Hundreds of small ships emerged from hidden bases on Mars, the Moon, and asteroids. They were unlike anything the Empire had seen before, a mix of human innovation and reversed engineered alien technology from crashed ships they'd recovered over the years. "Attack pattern Delta," Walker commanded. The human ships moved in ways that defied Imperial tactical computers. They flew in spirals and irregular patterns, making them nearly impossible to target. Ross watched in horror as the first Imperial ships fell. The humans weren't fighting like a primitive species. They were fighting like veterans of 1,000 wars. "Launch our fighters," Ross ordered. Thousands of Imperial combat craft poured from the larger ships. But the humans were ready for this too. Hidden platforms around Earth activated, creating an energy field that interfered with Imperial targeting systems. Their superior technology was suddenly working against them, too complex to adapt quickly to the human countermeasures. "Sir," Captain Marcus reported to Walker, "the guerrilla teams are in position." Walker gave the command. "Begin Phase 2. Small teams of human ships darted between the Imperial vessels, firing precisely at weak points they'd identified from studying the earlier scans. They didn't try to destroy the massive ships. They just crippled them, one system at a time. In the Imperial flagship, chaos reigned. "How do they know where to hit us?" Ross demanded. "How are they predicting our movements?" The answer was simple. Humans had spent centuries fighting each other, learning every trick of warfare. They'd prepared for this moment, studying the Imperial ships from the first contact. Every human ship carried centuries of combat experience in its design. After 6 hours of battle, the Imperial fleet was in tatters. A third of their ships were destroyed, another third crippled. The rest were trapped in the artificial gravity wells, unable to escape or fight effectively. Walker stood up in the command center. "Open a channel to Commander Ross." On the Imperial flagship's damaged bridge, Ross received the transmission. Walker's face appeared on the screen, still calm, still confident. "This was just our defensive fleet, Commander," Walker said quietly. "The ships we let you see earlier were decoys. Would you like to see our actual combat fleet now?" Ross looked at his ruined fleet, at the burning wrecks of ships that had conquered 1,000 worlds. For the first time in Imperial history, a conquest fleet had been defeated. "Retreat," he whispered, then louder, "Full retreat." The remaining Imperial ships struggled free of the gravity wells and flowed into hyperspace, leaving their crippled companions behind. In the Rocky Mountain Command Center, Walker watched them go. Send word to all commands, he ordered. Phase 1 complete. Begin preparing Phase 2. The Empire needs to learn that humanity isn't just another primitive species to conquer. The first battle was over. The real war was about to begin. 3 months after defeating the Imperial invasion fleet, Earth's scientists worked day and night in a secret facility beneath the Atlantic Ocean. The captured Imperial ships had given humanity exactly what they needed, working examples of advanced technology. Amazing, the lead scientist said, studying a piece of Imperial engine technology. They've relied on the same designs for so long, they've stopped looking for new ways to improve them. Admiral Walker walked through the facility, watching as teams combined human creativity with Imperial tech. The results were something entirely new. Not quite human, not quite Imperial, but more dangerous than either. How soon? Walker asked. The first ships are ready, the scientist replied. We've done in 3 months what took the Empire 300 years. They never thought anyone would dare to change their perfect designs. In orbit above Earth, a new kind of fleet gathered. The ships were smaller than Imperial vessels, but packed with hybrid technology. Their hulls were dark gray, almost invisible against the backdrop of space. Each one carried weapons that mixed human and Imperial ideas in ways the Empire had never imagined. Operation Thunderbolt was about to begin. Meanwhile, on the Imperial capital world, Commander Ross faced the Emperor's anger. You lost an entire fleet to primitives. The Emperor's voice echoed through the throne room. Impossible. Ross knelt, his uniform still bearing scorch marks from the battle. They were prepared. They knew our weaknesses. They had technology they shouldn't have had. Advisor Thomas was right. The Emperor muttered, "These humans are different." He turned to his military command. Send the first Imperial battle fleet. Crush them completely. But humanity struck first. The new Earth fleet, led by Admiral Walker on the flagship Thunderchild, appeared near one of the Empire's major military bases. The Imperial sensors didn't detect them until they were almost in firing range. The hybrid stealth technology worked better than anyone had expected. Begin the attack, Walker ordered. Show them what we've learned. The Earth ships moved in formations never seen before in space combat. Imperial gunners couldn't predict their movements because they didn't follow any known patterns. Each human captain flew like they were fighting their own private war, yet somehow all part of a larger plan. The Imperial base's defenders scrambled to respond. They launched waves of fighters, only to find the human ships protected by shields that combined Imperial energy technology with Earth's experimental quantum fields. Target their command centers, Walker commanded, just like we practiced. The human fleet split into smaller groups, each attacking with different tactics. Some ships fired conventional weapons, while others used modified Imperial technology. The base's defenders couldn't adapt to the constant changes in attack patterns. In just 2 hours, the Imperial base, one that had stood for 500 years, fell to Earth's forces. But Walker wasn't done. As soon as the base was secured, human engineers swarmed over it, learning more Imperial secrets, finding more ways to combine the two technologies. The captured base's communications array brought unexpected news. The Imperial First Battle Fleet was moving to attack Earth, but they were using the same strategies, the same formations that humans had already learned to defeat. Send word to Earth, Walker ordered. Have them prepare the next phase of ships with what we've learned here. And send this message to all Imperial frequencies. This is just the beginning. On the Imperial capital, Thomas watched the reports come in with growing concern. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were evolving their tactics and technology with each battle. They were doing something no other species had done in 10,000 years. They were making Imperial technology better. We must negotiate, Thomas pleaded with the Emperor. These humans, they're turning our own strength against us. But the Emperor wouldn't listen. His empire had never lost, and he refused to believe it could lose now. As reports of the base's fall spread through Imperial space, Other conquered species began to watch with interest. If humans could defeat the Empire, the real war was spreading, and the Empire was about to learn another human trait: the ability to inspire others to fight for freedom. The Emperor stood in his war room, watching holographic displays of battles across his empire. Every screen showed the same thing: Imperial forces retreating from human attacks. 6 months had passed since the first failed invasion of Earth, and nothing had gone as planned. "How?" he demanded. "How are they spreading so fast?" Advisor Thomas stepped forward, his face grim. "They're not just fighting us, Your Majesty. They're freeing other species as they go, teaching them how to fight back, sharing their hybrid technology." The Emperor watched as another Imperial fleet retreated from a human assault. The human ships now looked different from both Earth and Imperial designs. They kept evolving, kept improving. "Look at this," Thomas said, showing footage from a recent battle. Human ships were fighting alongside vessels from 3 other species. They moved together like they'd trained for years, not weeks. They're natural teachers, natural allies. Every species they free joins their cause. On the front lines, Admiral Walker's fleet approached another Imperial stronghold. But this time, his ships weren't alone. Vessels from the freed worlds of Greenhaven, Star Cluster 7, and the Crystal Systems flew with them. "Remember," Walker broadcast to the Allied fleet, "fight your way, not theirs. Use what makes your species unique. We'll coordinate, but we don't need to fight the same way." The battle that followed showed why the Empire was losing the war. Each species fought differently. The Crystal Systems ships used light-bending technology. The Greenhaven vessels moved in impossible organic patterns, and the Star Cluster 7 ships employed swarm tactics. The Imperial defenders, trained to fight against standard tactics, couldn't adapt fast enough. Their perfect formations and ancient strategies fell apart against enemies that refused to follow the rules of war. Back on Earth, the secret facility under the Atlantic Ocean had tripled in size. Scientists from 20 different species now worked together, combining their knowledge in ways the Empire had never imagined possible. The Empire's greatest weakness, one alien scientist said to his human colleague, was forcing everyone to use their technology their way. "You humans, you take what works and make it better." The Empire's military commanders were starting to panic. Reports came in daily of more worlds joining the human alliance. Species that had been conquered for thousands of years were rising up, using tactics they learned from human advisors. "These humans," an Imperial general said during an emergency meeting, "they're not just fighting us. They're waking up every species we've ever conquered, teaching them how to think differently." Commander Ross, now tasked with defending the Empire's core worlds, watched recording after recording of lost battles. Each one showed something new. Human ships using different tactics, new weapons, improved defenses. "They're not superior to us," he finally realized. "They're just never satisfied with being good enough. They keep changing, keep adapting." The Empire had awakened something they didn't understand. A species that treated war as a puzzle to be solved, not a set of rules to be followed. On a freed world, Walker met with leaders of the growing alliance. The room was filled with beings of all shapes and sizes, all united by one thing. They'd learned from humans that the Empire wasn't invincible. "We don't want to destroy the Empire," Walker told them. "We just want them to understand that the galaxy doesn't belong to them alone." A message arrived during the meeting. 3 more systems had broken free from Imperial control. The rebellion was spreading faster than even humans had expected. The Emperor read the latest reports with growing dread. The humans weren't just winning battles, they were changing the way every species thought about fighting, about technology, about freedom itself. "We didn't just wake up one sleeping primitive species," Thomas said quietly. "We woke up the entire galaxy." The Empire had ruled through fear and superior technology for 10,000 years, but they had never faced a species that could take their technology and make it better, that could teach others to do the same. They had never faced humans before. And now it was too late to go back. 1 year into the war, Admiral Walker's combined fleet reached the edges of the Empire's core systems. His flagship, Thunderchild, now carried battle scars from dozens of victories. But this would be their hardest fight yet. The Empire has gathered everything they have left, Walker told the Alliance commanders through the fleet's communication system. They're making their final stand. The largest Imperial fleet ever assembled waited ahead, 10,000 ships strong. Commander Ross stood on the bridge of his new flagship, watching his forces gather. They can't possibly defeat this many ships, Ross said, but his voice lacked its old confidence. The Alliance fleet was smaller, only 4,000 ships. But these vessels were different from anything seen before in the galaxy. Each one carried technology from multiple species, improved and combined in ways that shocked Imperial engineers. Walker opened a channel to the Imperial fleet. "Commander Ross," he said, "you can still end this peacefully. The Empire doesn't have to fall. It just has to change." Ross looked at the human ships through his viewport. A year ago, he'd thought humans were primitives. Now their very names struck fear into Imperial hearts. "The Empire doesn't change," Ross replied. "We conquer. That's what we've always done." "Then you leave us no choice," Walker said quietly. "All ships begin Operation Freedom's Light." The battle that followed would be studied for centuries. The Imperial fleet moved in their perfect, unchanging formations, the same tactics they used for 10,000 years. The Alliance fleet split into smaller groups, each fighting in their own style. Human ships darted through enemy lines. Crystal system vessels bent light around themselves. Green Haven organic ships flowed like water through space. "They're not fighting as one fleet," an Imperial officer realized with horror. "They're fighting 1,000 different battles at once." The Empire's strength had become its weakness. Their ships could only fight one way, only respond with planned strategies. But their enemies fought like a swarm of different creatures, each with their own way of thinking. Deep in Imperial space, more problems arose. Conquered worlds, inspired by news of the Alliance's victories, began to rebel. Imperial forces found themselves caught between Walker's fleet and uprising after uprising. Status report. Ross demanded as another group of Imperial ships fell to the Alliance attack. "We've lost contact with 30 systems," his officer reported. "The outer colonies are in full revolt. The trade routes are cut off. And, sir, some of our own ships are refusing to fight." This was something new. Imperial crews, seeing the futility of their situation, began surrendering. They'd watched human ships rescue enemy crews after victories. They'd heard stories of how the Alliance treated its members as equals, not subjects. In his war room, the Emperor received the news with growing despair. "How many ships have we lost?" 3,000 in the main battle, Thomas reported. "But we're losing more to desertion. Our crews, they're starting to ask questions we've never allowed before." The Emperor slumped in his throne. Questions. Why do we conquer? Why can't we change? Why do we fight the way we've always fought? Thomas looked at his leader. The humans didn't just bring better weapons. They brought ideas. Walker watched from his bridge as more Imperial ships switched sides. The mighty Empire was breaking not from the outside, but from within. "Send the offer again," he ordered. Across Imperial space, the message played. "You don't have to fall. You don't have to die. You just have to accept that the old ways are over. Join us as equals, not rulers." The Empire that had stood unchanged for 10,000 years faced its greatest crisis. Not just defeat in battle, but defeat of their entire way of thinking. Ross looked at his failing fleet, at the growing number of ships signaling surrender. He had a choice: die for the old Empire, or live to help build something new. He opened a channel to Thunderchild. The war was about to enter its final phase, but not in a way anyone had expected at the start. 6 months after Commander Ross's surrender, representatives from 100 species gathered in the Empire's former throne room. The massive golden chamber had been transformed. Where once only the Emperor sat, now There were seats for all. Admiral Walker stood at the center, his uniform now bearing symbols of both Earth and the Alliance. Beside him stood Ross, who had helped negotiate the Empire's peaceful transition. "The war is over," Walker announced to the assembled leaders. "Today, we create something new, the Galactic Council, where all species have an equal voice." The Emperor, now serving as just one representative among many, watched with mixed feelings. His empire had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, yet somehow these humans had changed everything in less than 2. "The humans did what we thought impossible," Thomas whispered to his former leader. "They united the galaxy not through force, but through inspiration." Across the galaxy, changes were already visible. Ships of mixed designs flew through space, combining the best ideas from dozens of species. Trade routes reopened, but now carrying new goods, new technologies, new ways of thinking. On Imperial classroom worlds, young students learned something new, that there were many ways to solve a problem, not just the Empire's way. Human teachers worked alongside alien instructors, showing how different viewpoints made everyone stronger. "The greatest weapon humans brought wasn't their ships or their tactics," Ross said during the council meeting. "It was their ability to learn from everyone, to combine ideas in new ways." Walker stood at a window, watching ships from 50 different worlds move through space around the capital planet. Each one showed signs of human influence, not by copying Earth designs, but by learning to innovate like humans did. "We need to make sure this never happens again," a council member said. "No single species should try to rule all others." The council's first act was to create the Interstellar Defense Protocol, a set of guidelines written by Walker and Ross together. Its first line read, "The greatest strength comes not from conquering others, but from learning from them." In deep space, at the edges of known territory, Imperial border markers were replaced. The new signs carried a simple message: "Welcome to Allied space. All peaceful species welcome." But they added another message, written smaller. "Warning. This territory is protected by humans and their allies. Those seeking conquest should remember Earth." The Empire's military archives were updated one final time. Earth was added to a very special list, the Forbidden Worlds, but not because it was dangerous or evil. The note attached read, "Do not engage in conflict. These humans will not only defeat you, they will change how you think." Back in the council chamber, Walker met with Ross and Thomas. The 3 men who had started as enemies now worked to build something new. "Did you know this would happen?" Ross asked, "when you first refused to surrender to the Empire." Walker smiled. "We didn't plan to change the galaxy. We just did what humans always do: adapt, learn, and share what we learn with others." Thomas nodded. "That's what makes humans different. The Empire spent 10,000 years trying not to change. Humans spend every day looking for ways to change for the better." As the council session ended, ships from Earth arrived carrying something new. The first graduates of the Interstellar Defense Academy. Young officers from 100 species had trained together on Earth, learning not just how to fight, but how to think in new ways. The empire that had ruled through fear was gone. In its place stood something stronger, an alliance built on the human ideas of adaptation, cooperation, and constant improvement. Walker looked at the stars through the council chamber window. Somewhere out there, other empires might be thinking of conquest. But now they would face not just humans, but a galaxy that had learned to think like humans. "Let them come," he said quietly. "We'll teach them too." The galaxy had learned its lesson. Never underestimate humans. They won't just defeat you. They'll make you better.